Leaders play a crucial role in creating thriving workplaces. Hi everyone, I'm Rebecca Christianson. I'm the Director of Thriving People Consulting. I am a Thrive strategist for the New World of Work, also an international executive coach, and I provide strategic people and culture consulting to organisations. I have a psychology background, and that means I am endlessly curious about people and leaders. And in my previous life, I was a people and culture executive and senior leader, and I worked both here in Australia and also overseas in Europe as well. As far as the plan for our short time together today, I thought I would focus first of all on some context around why leader wellbeing and self-care is really important, a bit around why leaders might resist this. And then I am going to share 5 practices that research has shown that support leader wellbeing. And then I'm going to share some hints and tips around these 5 practices, some really practical hints that you can use to be able to put into practice. So I hope that sounds like a good plan for today. As the title of this talk says, leaders play a crucial role in creating thriving workplaces. However, it starts first with us as leaders prioritising our own well-being. When we speak about well-being, and I think most of us seem to understand what we're speaking about, but when we talk about self-care, what are we actually referring to? So Harvard Business Review wrote a great article in 2017, which proposed that we broaden our thinking around what self-care actually is. So they said it's our relationship and connection that we have with ourselves. So if we're exhibiting self-care, it means that you're attuned to and you understand what you need to be your most constructive, effective, and authentic self. So that means it's a lot more than just looking after our physical health. It's paying attention to a wide set of areas, including our mind, our emotions, our relationships, time, resources, and also environment around us. In my experience, many leaders really struggle with the notion of self-care, and they resist it typically for 3 reasons. Firstly, they think they don't have enough time in their day to insert any other type of activities. Secondly, they believe that in order to be a strong and effective leader, they should be naturally resilient. And so if they need to do anything extra to look after themselves, that means they're a bit weak. Or thirdly, the idea of implementing daily self-care practices seems a little bit too hippie or new age. And so sadly, because of some of this resistance to self-care, that means that self-neglect is actually a much more common behavioural pattern in leaders. When we're stressed, neuroscientists tell us that our amygdala kicks in, and amygdala is a part of the brain that's responsible for our fight, flight, or freeze response. And when our amygdala kicks in, when we're stressed or we're overly anxious, it diverts resources away from our prefrontal cortex. And this part of our brain is responsible for higher order executive decision making. It enables us to be logical, to be able to problem solve, and also exhibit willpower as well. So in other words, when we're feeling stressed, this is the best time for us to be able to slow down, to look after ourselves, to prioritize our own well-being, so we actually are able to think big and innovate and to lead our teams really well. We know that when we as leaders are run down or if we're burnt out, then our fatigue or our reduced cognitive ability and negative mindset can be a barrier to the way we engage with our teams. And this can have a negative impact on team culture and also team performance. Study after study shows that people generally leave an organisation because of their direct manager. And so as a leader, it's really important that we reflect on our leadership shadow, and that is to understand the impact that our stress response and our related leadership style actually has on our team's engagement and the people that we work with around us. The expectations and pressure on leaders has increased exponentially in 2020. We've had so many challenging situations that we've all had to deal with. And many senior leaders I've been working with have been putting themselves last. So they've been giving to everyone else in their team and the organisation, which, in some ways one might say is admirable, but it's not sustainable long term. So in order to be effective leaders, we really need to put on our own oxygen mask first. That is, and doing that is not being selfish. So how can we lead effectively if we're running on empty? Designing a self-care strategy is inherently personal, and so you need to be able to find what works for you through practice and refinement, and there's not a one-size-fits-all approach. However, operationalising it into our working day and seeing it as a part of our work rather than an addition to or an add-on is super important. I really love this quote from Patrick. He wrote an article for Mercer in 2017, so if you wanted to look him up online, you can. And he says, if you're not taking care of yourself, you're not going to be able to take care of your team, and at least not in the long haul. At some point, your patience, your health, your energy, and your effectiveness is going to give. Without some kind or some type of self-care strategy, you're doing yourself and the people that depend on you a disservice. So there are 5 practices that research tells us that are important for leaders to cultivate, especially in times of stress. And the first one is to increase foundational routines. So that is to get the basics right of sleep, diet, exercise, and mindfulness. To be able to dial up self-compassion and self-belief is the second. The third is to reset our relationship with our mobile and cultivate some new habits to create better boundaries. The fourth is to prioritise reflection time, and that is to create space to be more proactive. And the fifth is to hold a growth mindset, and that is to be really curious, to evolve our thinking. So let's start with the first practice, and I might ask you a simple question if that's okay. But do you prioritise sleep, exercise, a healthy diet, and mindfulness? We know that a healthy diet has been linked to better moods, higher energy levels, and lower levels of depression. Are you aware of what you eat every day? And if you're not, then maybe start taking a food diary for 2 weeks just to be really clear on what you're eating and when. I know I did this many years ago and I didn't realize actually how many snacks I ate, for example. So becoming more conscious around our daily eating habits is a good start. We also know the value of getting a really good night's sleep. And do you get 7+ hours sleep a night? We know good sleep has been linked to increased focus, improved cognitive functioning, greater capacity for learning, and actually also improved empathy. Do you have a sleep routine? And do you go to bed at the same time every day? If not, then that's a really good place to start. And then what about from an exercise perspective? So we know aerobic exercise increases blood flow and it boosts both learning and memory. It also increases our energy levels and it just makes us feel good because of the positive endorphins that it ends up releasing. Given most people have been working from home for a lot of this year, then our incidental exercise has been reduced and some of us have, got into some unhelpful exercise patterns and we haven't been exercising as much as we usually would. So I've been inserting what I call productivity breaks, and they're actually mini walks through the day. They're 5 to 10 minutes where I get up away from my desk and I actually walk around my house, and that is to get more steps and actually just to take a break. And I get quite a lot of aha moments when I just switch off briefly and I'm getting steps as well. So it seems like a great outcome. And the last question I have for you is around, have you tried experimenting with mindfulness for between 2 to 10 minutes a day? So mindfulness is a form of meditation and it's being fully present and it's being aware of our thoughts and feelings whilst remaining and feeling calm. So the University of Wisconsin has lots of neuroscientists and they teamed up with Daniel Goldman and they reviewed hundreds of studies that had taken place that were analysing the effectiveness in mindfulness. And they looked through all these studies and they noticed that there were 4 consistent benefits that had come through around the benefits of mindfulness. So the first one was improving concentration, so having a much stronger focus, staying calm whilst under stress, improved memory, and also increased empathy and kindness. So I started my mindfulness practice in the morning with just 2 minutes in the morning. I figured we can all do 2 minutes. And I bolted it on to a well-established existing habit that I had, which was my yoga practice, which I've been doing for years. I do 5 to 10 minutes of yoga stretching every morning. And I bolted my mindfulness practice onto that. And I did 2 minutes for the first week, 3 minutes every day for the second week, 4 minutes. So I increased it by a minute every week. And so I gradually increased this time, and it worked really well for me to get to kind of a 10, 15 minute practice daily. I find it really makes a difference in increasing my clarity of thought first thing in the morning. So the second practice is to dial up our self-compassion and our self-belief. So many of us move through the day on autopilot, and we're not conscious of the way we think and what stories or explanations we're telling ourselves to events that happen during the day. So becoming more conscious of our internal narrative and self-talk is key. So what unhelpful stories are we telling ourselves that might be getting in the way of our effectiveness? What patterns of thinking and behaving do you have? Being kind to ourselves consistently is really important. And a part of this is owning our self-talk by first becoming the observer of our own thinking. When we are under stress and pressure, we often feel anxious. And when we're anxious, we're actually overestimating a threat and underestimating our ability to deal with it. So how can we back ourselves more in the moment? We could think of previous situations that are similar and think about how we manage those. Or we could talk to ourselves in a positive way by using positive affirmations and trying to increase our energy and positivity around our ability to deal with the situation. And interestingly, the University of California at Berkeley actually found that positive affirmations actually act as cognitive expanders. They bring a wider perspective to reduce the brain's tendency to narrowly focus on negative thoughts or our problems. So they found that these positive self-affirmations actually help people manage their judgmental voice much better. So they help dial down their voice. They're also able to see themselves more fully and also increase their self-worth. Now, these positive affirmations were seen as self-help exercises or a bit hippie in the 90s. However, now there's a lot of research demonstrating why they are actually of value. The third practice is really hard because a lot of us are addicted to our mobile phones. So how can we reset our relationship with our mobile? This is a tough one, and one of the studies I read shared a very disturbing fact, which was that on average we tap, swipe, or click on our phones 2,617 times a day. Reviewing the hours we spend on our screen, on our mobile, is a really good place to start. I know I checked mine and I was quite disturbed. And I aim to reduce it over a period of a few months by just 5% a week. There's a lot of research that gives us other good tips and tricks to be able to manage our relationship with our mobile better. So one is turning off email and text notifications or putting our phone on silent at specific times of the day. So my phone is generally on silent most of the day and I don't hear any of the notifications. So that helps reduce distractions for me. Many of us waste a lot of time scrolling through social media, and so a lot of the research encourages us to delete our social media apps from our mobile. I deleted Facebook and kept Instagram, and I only check Instagram in the evenings, and that's become a really well-refined habit over a few months. The research also tells us that our bedrooms should be a mobile-free zone. So that is, we shouldn't use our phones as an alarm in our bedroom. So we should charge them in another room and then buy an old-fashioned alarm clock. I've got one, it's got batteries. But research by Harvard Medical School and numerous other universities has shown that the blue light that's emitted by our mobile phones actually restrains the production of melatonin. And we need melatonin to control our sleep-wake cycle, which is our circadian rhythm. And so this makes it difficult to fall asleep and also to stay asleep. So I've implemented this habit for about 2.5 years, I think now, and I get much better quality of sleep. So I don't take my mobile into the bedroom at all. I use my old-fashioned alarm clock and I fall asleep straight away now, whereas I used to have problems falling asleep in the past. And the last tip is to check your mobile phone after either 10 to 30 minutes after you've got out of bed. So that is to restrain yourself from doing it, to allow your brain waves to go from your sleep brain waves up to alpha brain waves. And I won't go into the detail around the neuroscience around that, but that's another tip from quite a lot of research as well. So practice 4, that's around prioritising reflection time. Now, I was an executive, as I said, and a senior leader, and I know what it's like to be in a crazy busy day within back-to-back meetings and having no time to think. So I created my reflection time when I was travelling home from work, and I would either take the tube when I was living overseas or on the bus in Australia, and I would just switch off and I would think. I'd force myself not to look at my mobile. And I'd have some great aha moments because I would just be able to sit and think and not be distracted. So some of the leaders with the clearest minds I know carve out 15 to 30 minutes a day, often in the morning, to be silent and to think. One leader that I've known for a long time uses this reflection time to think about the crucial conversations that he needs to have during the day. So instead of focusing on his task list and getting through emails, he thinks about his higher order, more strategic conversations that he wants to do to either make the life of his team easier or to solve some of the organisational issues. Finding the time can be challenging in our diaries, but actually picking a specific time of the day and seeing it as a part of your job every day can help create the new habit. And lastly, so holding a growth mindset. Most of us have heard of Carol Dweck's research that outlines the value of holding a growth mindset. So she's a US psychologist, and she was really interested in understanding the mindset that sets us up for success in the future. And she outlines a fixed and growth mindset. And a fixed mindset is really unhelpful for us because it ends up inhibiting learning, whereas a growth mindset can really serve us and the people around us because it enables us to be really curious and to want to learn new things, to learn from others and criticism, to persevere in the face of adversity, and also just have a desire to evolve overall. It starts with slowing down and being in sponge and learning mode and being able to ask questions and being interested in alternative explanations. Now, being able to listen to understand rather than respond is really important. So again, these are really simple tips to use, but most of us rush through the day and don't always listen to understand what's sitting behind what people are saying. So COVID has presented us with so many challenges this year, and a lot of the leaders I've been working with have been prioritising their teams and not themselves. Whereas it's important for us to make this a commitment, see our self-care as a part of our job as being a leader to ensure that we're as effective as what we can be. These are some questions that I ask some of my executive coaching clients. So out of the 5 practices, how would you rate yourself from 1 to 5? 1 being not doing this practice very well or often, and 5 would be nailing it. So how would you rate yourself out of 5? And then select 1 practice that you scored lower on and identify 2 habits that you could put into place. Make the habits micro. So start with really short habits of around 5-10 minutes a day, and then operationalize them. So put them into your diary. I love this quote from James Clear. So he is the international guru on creating new habits. And he says, all big things come from small beginnings. The seed of every habit is a small, tiny decision. But as that decision is repeated, a habit sprouts and grows. And the task of building a good habit is like cultivating a delicate flower 1 day at a time. So I hope you've been able to gain some insights from today's session. If you wanted to follow me, then please look me up on LinkedIn and enjoy the rest of your day. Thanks.